Okay, I decided to put in the abstract. I've started to do that. Okay, I don't expect you to read it here. You can all read it in your own things. But the point is that, okay, the whole idea here is that I've developed a package that puts pop-ups in mathematics. Okay, why does one want to do that? Well, we'll get to that. Okay, but it allows different things. So the same symbols could in fact have different meanings. You're attaching semantics to macro names as well as to character symbols. We can allow nesting of the rectangles that you need to press on in order for the pop-ups to come up and that kind of thing. And then I think the last one's actually very important because basically you don't want to do all this yourself. You'd like to have a system that does most of it for you, but occasionally it's not going to do the right thing. And you want to be able to override that. And that's, I think, is the most important part of what I do. So let's have a look. How did this all start? Just over a year ago from now, one of the guys at another conference, the previous one to what I was at last week, so his name's MK, stands for Michael Kohlhauser, and he asked me what packages are available to use tooltips with mathematical content. And I gave him an answer, and I said, there's this package here called pdfcomment.sty, and it does good things. So here's its documentation, and here's the specific example that I had in mind, where each of the symbols or collections of symbols has got a little annotation attached to it, and the visual cue that there's something there is given by the backgrounding and whatever. Okay, you don't want to have all of that in a printed paper. You don't want to have all that sort of thing occurring, and you think maybe that's a bit garish. Well, maybe. But the point here is that it shows you the kinds of things that can now be done in PDF. So this is all happening in PDF. It's not using JavaScript to show anything. And it's important that it happens in the PDF because it's then up to the PDF viewer to make sure that the annotations get shown, right? Whereas you're not relying on any embedded programming, okay? And it's got another, if you click on this link, it gives you a list of all other kinds of things that you might use. And if you go to that, you might think, well, okay, maybe I might do that in a high school maths setting, but it's not so much for scientific mathematics, but I'm going to show you that we can do better than this. And in fact, this particular example actually goes back to an earlier work of my own, which, again, so the example at the top, it's basically the same expression, and here you may be able to see there's little wavy yellow lines underneath, and that was the visual cue that there's something there. Okay, and you can see how the information coming up in the pop-ups is really a semantic description of what the various bits of the mathematics are meant to do. Okay, so those of you who aren't so interested in mathematics can think, well, I might be able to do that too in chemical formulae or in chess positions or in who knows what kind of things that you're all interested in doing. Okay, so that actually dates back quite some way, 5 years ago, and I think I even showed that probably in the TUG 2009 conference, or maybe 2010, one or the other. Anyway, okay, so this is the paper that, or this links to the paper that describes all of this, and okay, I'm going to have to go into, get out of full screen mode for that. Okay, we don't need that open. Okay, so this is the paper that I produced, and the point is that this paper, well, as one of the reviewers noted, that not only is this a paper describing the work, it's actually a demonstration of the work. So this is actually a PDF with all of the techniques that I describe actually working. It includes come on, that should open up. That's meant to open up to there. There we go. There's the package is actually attached to the paper as an attachment, so you can get it out of there. and try the demos or try the examples for yourself. Okay, and so a little bit of discussion here. Okay, let's move on to the examples. Here's the kind of thing that here's part of the reasoning of why we're doing things the way we're doing it. Okay, supposing you've got something like this and you're wanting to enrich it with the tooltips, so that should actually work. Right. And here's the coding that was used. But of course you don't want to write your mathematics that way. And so that's the point. But there's a second point here, and I'm going to turn on to read out loud. And this actually takes a little while to get loaded properly, but you'll see why I want to do that in a minute, or at least you'll hear why I want to do that in a minute. So has it actually happened yet? Okay, so let's click on this. Yeah, okay. So
paper, the term semantics could be taken to mean the well-structured, meaningful, vocal rendition of mathematical content, understandable without the need.
Okay, so you can see how it reads that quite well, but the point is what happens around here. So how do I get rid of that? This interface, there's still things that puzzle me with this new interface. Hit comment, yeah. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I want to be up here. No, I don't. I want to be select. All right, so I want to select round about there. Okay. And this is really good once it gets going.
There's a four-letter word.
Yeah. Okay, so come on. Okay. Come on.
Blank.
Okay, so let's...
Plus, verb, support tooltips, with all employing rather verbose coding. For example, in a linguistics context, one might want something like S, subject, plus, verb, blank, O, object, using coding.
Okay, so you see what's happened is that it doesn't read out the characters in the mathematics, it reads out the comments in the mathematics. So if someone can't see what the characters are, it doesn't matter, because it's reading out for them, right? So this is part of our endeavour to provide our documents that are useful or accessible to people with visual disabilities or other kinds of disabilities. And maybe you can think of other contexts where you want the mathematics to be read out to you while you're off busily doing something else and not actually seeing what's on the screen. Okay, the difficulty, of course, is that nobody wants to write.
This puts quite a heavy burden on a document. Tooltip, S, subject, tooltip, plus, verb, tooltip, O, object.
Well, perfect example. You don't want all of that to be what's being read out to you. You don't want all of that to be what you have to actually write in order to obtain the effect of what's happening up here. Okay? So we want an alternative method to specify the information that's going to go in those tooltips attached to each of the characters in our formula. Okay, so this is where the tech programmers come into it. Okay, so this is the solution that I came up with. Okay, and the idea is, okay, most of you think, okay, that percent sign, that's just a comment. So in the processing, everything on that line gets ignored. Wrong. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen anymore. Once the package is loaded and you give the open inline math delimiter, then I've hacked at that so that it looks ahead, sees what's coming, it sets the category code of the percent to be active, it sets the category code of the end of the line to be active, and then parses and reads ahead, sees that there's a comment. The comment then catches everything to the end of the line and has a good look at what's on that line. And if what's on that line satisfies appropriate criteria, then new things start to happen. Okay? And so you can see what's going on here. The first one, well, everything has a dollar sign in it. Dollar sign would close mathematics if it was in ordinary mathematics. That means a dollar sign cannot appear down in the actual specification of the mathematics, so it's available to be used as a delimiter for the rest of the information. So the next line says, okay, let's turn the letter A into an active character, which is going to then do something more than what it normally would do. Okay, and the information attached to it is a collection of words, the dog. So if I come over here, and then A gives me the dog. Okay, and you do that for each of the characters that you want to attach something to, and then you need to have a line that closes everything off. So we've actually got an N-semantics keyword here. It's an empty field before the dollar, and then a single word coming afterwards. Okay, same thing up the top here. Empty field before the dollar, single word coming afterwards. That one, in fact, is totally irrelevant. It's more of a hint to the programmer or to the document author what this section of comments is all about. And this one is a bit more important, and you need to finish it off. It could actually be finished off with a completely empty blank line after the percent, but that percent has to be there. Okay, and so the result is over here, the plus sign becomes eats, the first B becomes, oops, come on. Okay, let's look at the screen. Okay, the first B becomes the bone, and then the semicolon means that we've actually got a list of possible things that can happen. So the next B will become another bone, and the next one has the same as the last one in the list, and the superscript is whatever it is, any bones. Okay, the words don't have to be mathematics at this point, it's just to show you what can be done, how the system works. Okay, and then the comparison in the first line, here there's been no active comments used at all, here the comments have been used, and you see that the typesetting is identical. There's no change in what goes into the math lists, so the typesetting becomes identical. Well, that's not quite true. The things that go into the math lists, that put in the extra stuff, don't affect the spacing. So everything, the maths all comes out the same. Okay, there are other packages that implement tooltips. I've based this stuff using PDF comment because that's really the only one that's properly actively supported at the moment, and the author is very responsive, and I've helped him make some adjustments to things so that all of this really works properly. Okay, the other ones, one of them is unsupported and the other one uses JavaScript, so that basically cancels them out because there's no browser support for a lot of that, or there's no programmer support for new things, and there's no real browser support apart from in Acrobat Pro for these other things. These comments do work in other browsers. They work in Apple's browsers, but other things don't work in Apple's browsers. So Acrobat Reader, Adobe Reader and Acrobat Pro are really the best ones to use, but you can get some of the effects in other browsers. Okay, so those of you who are programmers thinking, is making letters active? Oh my goodness. What on earth can go wrong? And the answer, of course, is plenty. Plenty can go wrong. But in fact, so here's basically these are the rules. Right, single token followed by semantics with the active line end, or empty token, keyword, line end. And at the moment, the only keywords that are supported are the semantics and N-semantics, but you could do more. You could add other things in there. Okay. The point is that if the active comment occurs and it doesn't you get a line that doesn't satisfy this, it doesn't say, oh, there's an error, you've done something wrong. It just says, okay, this comment has got nothing to do with active semantic comments. It might be some message you've left yourself about what to do, what more belongs in that mathematics, or might be a criticism of your co-author or whatever. When that happens, the whole system stops and says, okay, I've got to the end of the semantic stuff. There's nothing more to do, so let's get on and actually do the mathematics and use what has been provided so far. Okay. So it's very, very clean. Or at least my coding of it appears to be pretty clean. Okay. Now, what can go wrong? Okay. What's gone wrong? Right. The letter A has been made active, and it's got a list of 3 different things. But of course, the A occurs in the macro name. So that means the macro name is going to have to finish after the TFR. Okay, and well, it's actually quite amazing. If you've got non-stop mode on, everything works fine and you get an answer, but it's not quite what you wanted. Okay, so the system works, but you get your warning message, and of course the B, and B happens to be a valid macro, but just not in that setting. So everything actually works. That's why there's this underline under the A there, if you can see that. Okay, so the question is, how do you get around this? And the answer, of course, is use macros. So, so this next example uses macros. So here's solving that previous one. If we come down to here, you can see real part of a complex number A equals half of open bracket A plus added to, okay, its complex conjugate, and close bracket. And that should all actually read. Okay, so if we...
Real part of a complex number equals half of blank open A added to its complex conjugate close bracket.
Yeah. So just works through very nicely for combining with the screen reader. And of course, with other kinds of assistive technology, then you may have the option of what to read out there. And so a blind person can navigate through this quite happily. Okay, so use of macros. Okay, so how does this work? We're now associating
%R.
Well, okay, let's turn that off now. Probably don't need it anymore. Okay, so we're now associating the semantics, if you want to call it that, or these extra words, to a macro, so a single token. Okay, so that single token, what happens is that its old expansion gets saved, it gets added to a list of things for which you're going to make changes to. You define a new expansion which produces the tooltip, and then when you get to the end of the semantics and you start to process the mathematics, when you reach the call to the macro, then it now goes and creates the tooltip with getting the size correct for what's supposed to be there, and then it goes in and puts in the correct symbol. Okay, and of course you're going to need to do this quite a lot. And so the point is that you should now make your macros have names that are telling you what the information's about, rather than telling you what it produces, because what it produces might be several levels deeper than what that macro is all about. Okay, so and of course if we use capital letters, then you're not going to get confused with making lowercase letters active. So that's why all these macros here are written in capital letters. But of course, if you don't make any letters active, then it doesn't matter. You can use a mixture of capital and lowercase. Okay, so that's how that example works. And you see, and of course, well, the other point is that supposing you're working collaboratively with somebody else and they don't have the package, they don't load it, you send them your maths, to them, that just looks like natural comments. So everything just works okay for them. They don't have to worry about the fact that you've got all this extra stuff inside your math environment. They just simply can look at what you've got and can understand exactly what you're trying to do and combine their work with it. And then they send their annotated copy back to you, and then you stick in all the extra comments as well, and you end up producing a paper that's got all of this extra semantic enrichment in it for the benefit of people who can't really read it but can listen to what you're saying, what you're trying to say. Okay? Declare robust command is very, very useful. So if you don't know what that means, it doesn't matter. If you do, you'll appreciate why we're adding so much extra stuff to things, you don't want expansion to happen too soon. So you're using declare robust command rather than using new command. But new command will work in certain cases as well. Okay, so here's another example where, okay, so this one actually comes from, it's in the manual for what's called S-Tech, and the S in front of the tech there stands for semantic. So this system, which again is what Michael Kohlhauser really wanted all of this for, is designed to, you can see the names, infinite sum of x to the power of k, or x exponentiated to k, c sum limits, x to the k, right? Throughout the S-Tech system, which is normally used to, well, it's used in two ways. It's used to produce PDFs of mathematical content, but it's also used to produce XML web pages of mathematical content. And all of the macro names are designed to pretty much even be parsable to work out what on earth the macros are doing. So, and then that information gets translated and interpreted to a little extent. And so in the web pages that they produce, there's semantic enrichment via MathML into all those web pages. And so this system is really, really good for that kind of stuff. And if you're not in mathematics, you can imagine how you could do the same kind of thing in whatever the field is that you are interested in. Okay? So here you see all of the binding now is done in macros. There are no single characters that get changed, so there's no problem with the names of the macros. You just specify the macros and how you want them to expand. Okay, so over here. Okay, so there's one that's basically doing the whole of the mathematics. So sum with k from, so that's picking up this macro, which is expanding into everything else, and there's its expansion, but you can move into pieces, and okay, so that one, you've got to find where the right place to put the mouse is, but okay, so bound variable k, x, find variable x, and then there should be, variable x raised to the power of k. Okay, so there's a rectangle available for each of these things, and actually seeing where that is, well, it might be a little bit hard if you're trying to run your finger over it, but if you're using the screen reader, then it will enter into each of those rectangles and read out the appropriate comment. Okay. I could probably try that out, but okay, how are we going for time? What are we?
We've got about 7 minutes.
7 minutes, okay, so that's fine. Okay, so let's move on. So does everyone understand how this is all working? And you can see how useful it can be in different settings? Okay. Okay, so the point now is that, okay, if you can do it with macro stuff that's picked up inside the environment itself, you should also be able to do it outside of that. So here's a macro here called declare math semantics, give it the token, give it the semantics, and what this now does is attach to that token the kind of semantics that you're wanting it to read out. Okay, and so if you've got lots of maths environments which all have the same kind of stuff, you're going to declare all the semantics first, and then what you do in the environment here, well, that can then just be used to override when you want to say something that's a little bit different to what you've set up as the defaults. Right, so this is setting up defaults effectively. Okay, and so the pictures show you what happens with the mouse at various places, and right, so this should all just work. Okay. Okay. Now the next thing, so possible future developments, because I haven't actually programmed this yet, and I didn't want to. I deliberately haven't programmed this because I want to get the reaction from the other people in the community here. Is we can define new keywords. In particular, you might want to define a keyword which gives you semantics for the complete environment, rather than for parts of the environment. Okay, and okay. And so here's the relevant comment. Such tagging of structure would go into an alt tag for the whole of a formula environment as used in tag PDF. So that's the idea. And as I said, well, this relates back to what I originally wanted this for, and that's to extend that example from 2009 and allow to override bits of the automatically generated stuff that happened in that example. Okay. Okay, so now let's go on a bit further and answer the question, why do we want to do this? So let's go back to the presentation. Okay. Come on, there we go. Okay, so let's have to do it this way because we're not full screen mode. So let's go back to full screen. Okay. Yeah, so other tooltip packages could have been used instead of PDF comment, but I already said why I didn't, why I used the one I did. Why does this not want to get advance? Interesting. That shouldn't happen. Let's get out of full screen mode and go on to the next page. Oh, okay. Okay, well, there's another one of those pictures. Okay. This is the bit. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. New legislation coming in the United States with respect to accessibility and all kinds of things to do with it, not just for IT, but for the furniture that you sit on, the access to buildings, everything to do with accessibility for people with disabilities of all kinds, plus other things. So let's get this into full screen. There we go. Okay, what does this mean for us in the tech community? Oh, it just doesn't want to do it.
You're in cursor mode? You just click like this.
It's yeah. Oh, okay, here, clicking does it. Okay, so basically if you have creating PDF content and if your employer is a US government agency, and here's the definition of what that means. Okay, this is an active link to the actual draft legislation, and this has been cut out of there. So that's an accurate, well, reasonably accurate. Wrong thing, sorry, let's do that again. Yeah. Then, if you're wanting to produce PDFs under such a setting, then you have to satisfy all of the requirements for PDF universal accessibility. And that is actually quite a large step. Otherwise, you can't distribute the PDF. So you have to then send it off to an agency that's going to put in all of the extra markup and stuff to turn it into PDF UA, or you have to have updated your software so that it will produce PDF UA. Okay. So I think to us in the tech community, that's something, in a sense, it's scary, but it's not really that. It's giving us an opportunity to really get on top of PDF generation. And the point is that most other PDF providers, in particular Apple stuff and so on, doesn't satisfy that yet. Okay? Why is this a sensible thing for them to have done? Well, the point is that there's quite a large intersection between the kinds of documents that PDF UA supports and the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Okay? And so no other PDF production system or PDF standard, well, not so much PDF standard, but people that produce documents for PDFs actually doing that. Whereas the PDF UA standard does have such a large intersection that it is a reasonable thing for the government to decide to do. Okay, the laws haven't been passed yet, and they may not actually go through in quite such a strict standard, but the point is people have got those ideas, okay? And so the last thing is a link through to the PDF UA Association, if you don't know what PDF UA is, but then that's what our next speaker is going to tell us about PDF UA, what it means, how it's used, all that kind of stuff. Okay? So, I think that's all. We've got time for questions.
Yeah, about 2 minutes for questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a comment. My university was about 3 years ago was sued by the American Foundation for the Blind, I believe.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of documents online that were PDF that were inaccessible.
Yep.
And so we went through a huge effort to put everything in plain HTML. And I can create a pretty nice looking document in plain text, but I certainly cannot in HTML.
Yep.
So this is huge.
Sure. Exactly. It's huge. Yeah.
Quick question. If I use this package and the other packages you explained us in previous conference, how close they will be to UA?
Okay. At the moment, you need a lot more. You need to change your driver to the experimental PDF tech, whatever. But I don't know, maybe Hans can do it already in LuaTech. Maybe Hans was already close. But what we're doing is provide... Okay, what my package does is... Oh, okay, I did have another slide here. Wait on. Let's get this... okay, so yeah, so what does this mean for mathematics? All right, it means the document has to be tagged PDF, it has to be fully tagged PDF. That's the hard bit. That's the real hard bit, okay? Providing tagging formulae, that's not too hard as a formula, that's not too hard to do. You can do that in our existing software, PDF Tech, LuaTech. You can possibly even do it in DVIPS, I'm not sure. Okay, and providing the alt text for the formula, that's what my package is about with that last bit at the end, semantics for the whole of the formula. That's all you need to do, okay? But of course we're going beyond that, and the next version of PDF with UA2 will be out, who knows, and PDF 2.0 will be out, who knows when, and we have to prepare everything to be able to cope with the tagged PDF. And that's where my stuff over the last 5 years is sort of directed to. It's not something that you can just put on a plate and say, here it is, do it, it'll work for you, because it won't. There's a lot of issues.
Maybe I'm going ahead, but maybe it's a question for Steve and for the new president. Cover, but at some point we need to create some sort of steering committee to summarize the work by Hans, by Rose, because at some point we probably need to have some advice somewhere about this and to steer the technical. So I think we are very close to the point when we really need this in tech community to have this accessibility group formalized.
Why don't you bring that up in the general meeting tomorrow?
Yes. Yeah.
Discuss it further.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.